In the room and listening in for coming to the Community Development Committee today of August 3rd, 2021. In the room with me is, I'm Councilman Chris Williams. In the room with myself is Wesley Hudson and Cyril Jefferson, and we have Councilman Johnson online. So the first item on the agenda today is the update Homeless Service Guilford County Continuum of Care. I will turn the floor over to Dr. Palmer.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for having the COC be a part of your regular meeting. Today, I really want to highlight a couple of ways that we have been collaborating as a continuum of care to receive resources in Guilford County, one, to address homelessness and to assist and support and help individuals who are in need, whether it be that they're already homeless and they're trying to secure housing, or they're on the verge of becoming homeless, and we're able to assist them. So the first has a little bit of a Greensboro slant to it, but one of the projects that we've been working on, it was a grant, the United Way of Greater Greensboro. And they had a grant opportunity that was available, and it fell under the name of Housing and Community Recovery Grant. About 5 or 6 agencies out of Greensboro collaborated, all participants of the Continuum of Care, and those organizations came together and wrote a grant called Bridging the Gaps. And the grant was written and titled that so that we could secure dollars to assist with diversion, prevention, and the elimination of barriers in terms of individuals who were in need of securing or maintaining housing. We applied for a grant in the amount of around $550,000, and collectively the group was awarded $330,000. So that's a way that we have been able to support organizations who participate in the continuum of care, and I consider that a success story. And so I wanted to share that as one of my primary updates today. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that success story. I have one more related to the city of High Point.
All right, are there any questions on that item? Okay, go ahead, Dr. Palmer.
Okay, thank you. The other is a success story that involved the city of High Point's Community Development and Housing Department. We ran into, so several of you know that I wear multiple hats. You know, I'm a community leader and volunteer as the chair of the COC, but I also assist nonprofits in our community in a variety of ways. And one of our organizations that's a member of the COC had 2 individuals who were living in a hotel. Those 2 individuals are living in a hotel, and both were somewhat on the verge of the next place they would be living is in their car. And so we were fortunate enough and had the opportunity to go over and tour Avondale Trace, which is a apartment community in High Point. And so we toured this place. Both of these individuals that are in a hotel are applying for disability. They have health issues. One of them, as of January of this year, was an entrepreneur, had a health scare, ended up in the hospital out of state, traveled back here, continued with those health issues, had an amputation, and was just this individual found themselves homeless, or I would say living in a hotel. I became aware of that, and I called upon, had a conversation with Nina Wilson. I also, after doing so, she convened a Zoom call with Craig Stone, the developer of Avondale Trace. When we went to Avondale Trace to look at the units there, what we saw is that those units accommodated individuals with physical disabilities and limitations. And one of these individuals who was living in a hotel, they really needed that type of living space. And so I shared that with Nina. She shared that with Mike. And then they convened a Zoom call with myself, Craig Stone, and his one of his VPs or staff. His name is Ray Davis. We had that conversation. They linked me to other staff members in their compliance office, the property manager. I could go on. But the long and short of the story is that successfully we housed that individual at Avondale Trace in a unit, in a living space that accommodates their physical limitations, and the housing is affordable. The other caveat to this story is that we were also able to explain a program called Rapid Rehousing. Some of you may know about this program, some of you may not. But that program, the intent, it's a HUD funded program, that program is intended to rapidly house individuals. And those dollars that come through that program are an individual could have no income and be able to utilize those resources. Successfully, we collaborated with, and I guess I'm speaking more directly to, City Council and this committee, is that we connected with your staff and we were able to successfully house this person before they ended up sleeping in their car or on the street. And so I just wanted to take the time to share that story, because I know, we come and we give an update and we don't always, speak about the people that we are helping directly. But this is a story that you will probably hear more about. And this person now has a High Point address. And so I just wanted to share that. It was collaboration at its best. It was the continuum of care doing what it does and what it should be doing, collaborating with its members to house people, and not after they're homeless, but before they're homeless. I can say that this individual has been at Avondale Trace a month now. We're going on a month now. They are getting the health care they need through case management. The property manager, Craig Stone, and his team and staff there have been working with the case manager that is also providing the rapid rehousing support for this individual. So I'll stop there. I could go on and on, but you will hear more about this particular story, because it's one of those stories where a person just kind of fell on their luck. Well, I should say, just ran into some hard times, and they were able to, by way of all of the work of the city of High Point, the developer, his staff, we all came together and we housed this person. And so I just wanted to share that. This person will be housed there for a year. Their rent will be paid as a part of the rapid rehousing program, and they will be able to get the health care and case management. Cone Health is involved in this. The YMCA is involved with this person. And so we've been able to wrap services around this individual, but it started with the housing. And so I just wanted to share that. And I don't know if anyone has any questions about that.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Well, it's good news, and I always love to hear the stories, individual stories. That's really the difference maker. It's also good news on the grant. It's okay to say it has a Greensboro slant. We're in partnership with them, so you can say that and share that anytime. So there's no issues here with us in Greensboro. But as always, Dr. Palmer, I really appreciate you bringing the update to us, and hope to continue to hear the good news that you're sharing with us. So thank you for today, and I look forward to talking to you next time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next up is a presentation that will be given by Vax Connect Project, and not exactly, Giselle? Yeah, okay, Giselle, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, I've never done this, so can I just, all righty. Okay, so thank you for having me. I'm Giselle Mancy, and I work for the YWCA. I am the director to the Latino Family Center, and I'm sorry about the mix-up with the presentation. This is a live, breathing document, and so I sent the link because it's live, and I actually just updated it today, but when I sent it, I think the other day, it was the previous, so I'm so sorry. I want to show my new numbers. Okay, perfect. So if you haven't heard, our Vax Connect program is a program that we're running out of the YWCA in conjunction with Guilford County Health Department, City of High Point, Foundation for Healthy High Point, and the Hayden Harmon Foundation. And what we do is we are canvassing the streets of the City of High Point, and we are educating the neighbors, we're educating everybody on the vaccine, and my team goes out. And not only are we just providing information, but if they haven't been vaccinated, then we allow them, we have the opportunity to schedule the appointment right there and then. If they're homebound, we can bring somebody to give them the vaccine. If they need transportation, we schedule it. We do not give out the vaccines. We're not selling the vaccine. We're just educating the community, and we have done this since May 18th. And so I've done a few updates with different community partners, and so I was asked to come in. So I'm going to share our numbers of the program, what we've done so far. So as I said, this partnership has been a work of love, tender love and care by the City of High Point, by Guilford County, the Health Department, the Foundation of Healthy High Point, and the Hayden Harmon Foundation, and we're so grateful for their partnership and for everything that they have done and for the support that we get from them. This started as a pilot program, and we weren't sure what it was going to be like when we started building it, and we planned, and then we started, going through it, and it's just been amazing to see the results. So to share a few numbers, we have knocked 3,556 doors. Out of those doors, Vax Connect has been able to assist 207 individuals in scheduling for their vaccines. That is representing 17% of those that were at home and unvaccinated. Our numbers typically range anywhere from 21 to 17. So last week we were at 20%, this week we're at 17. We have been able to schedule 6 homebound visits, and through the City of High Point, the partnership that we have been able to schedule 40 transportation arrangements were made, and which is this, when we did our initial numbers, this was 5 times, in 1 month, this was 5 times, no, I'm sorry, it was over 3 times the number of people that used the service in the previous 5 months. And so a lot of people don't know the resources that are there, and just to be able to provide that information and just to share those conversations have been truly a work of dedication, and it's just been really great to be able to talk to the community. So when we first started, Parcel 142, and there's a short map right there. That was our guinea pig, I call it, because that is where we had to make sure that our surveys were on point. This is where we kind of worked out all of our kinks. And through our amazing volunteers, and we had Gail, David, Patricia, myself, Heidi, and Patrick, they were in the beginning stages when we were out knocking doors. And all the streets that you see highlighted in yellow, we walked. And we walked, and we knocked, and we walked some more. And typically when my team goes out, they're wearing an orange shirt, we have a purple wagon, and we, when we talk, if the person is home, we leave them a goodie bag, but even if they're not home, we also leave them a goodie bag with all the information, and typically our number and email and everything is in there so that they can call or get a hold of us if they need to. After we completed Parcel 142, we moved on to Parcel 145. Again, everything that's in yellow, we walked. And we were able to complete. And for this one, we had David, Patricia, Gail, Janethia, Sylvia, Curtis, in Charlie, and we knocked again on every single door, and we met some wonderful people, and we have some great stories. And for the most part, well, I want to say for the whole part, the community has been very, very receptive on our efforts. Right now, we are doing Parcel 139. And so we just started this parcel, and that is kind of what's in yellow is what we walk and what we knock. Because of the heat and different elements, sometimes it can be hard. We depend on our volunteers as well. And so this area was a little bit more challenging because of the weather, because of the heat. And so if it's really, really hot, I try not to send my people out. I was a victim of heat exhaustion last week, so we are taking care of each other. And so I'm going to let Dalton. Dalton is one of my VAX connectors. He is on my team, and I want him to share. He's out and about every single day, knocking on doors, and so he's going to share some stories about the impact of the program.
Thanks, Giselle. It's good to see everybody in person again. So this is just one of the stories. We've been keeping a tracker of kind of canvassing narratives so that we can remember, some of the positive interactions that we've had to remind ourselves of why we continue to do this program. In this instance, we approached a couple that was sitting outside. We said, hey, we're just walking around the neighborhood to see if people need help getting to their vaccine appointments, if they're interested in getting a vaccine, and they said no. And I was just like, well, you mind sharing with me, what's kind of holding you back? We're just trying to see, gauge why people aren't getting the vaccine. And he said, well, my uncle died of the vaccine. And I said, wow, I've never heard of that. Can you share with me more? And as we talked through it, his uncle had actually passed away of COVID-19, the virus. So it's just kind of taking like little bits and pieces of misinformation and just breaking it apart and just saying, the vaccines are safe, they're effective, they've been rigorously tested. Over half the country has been fully vaccinated, 164 million people. And it's just condensing that relevant information and answering any other questions that people have. And this is just one of the many success stories that we've had. Those 207 people that Giselle mentioned, they were people that were not going to be vaccinated. They were people that were very against the vaccine and just had a few questions that needed to be answered, and we were able to provide that relevant information to them.
Thank you, Dalton. And yeah, one of the things that we find is that for a lot of the people that we talk to when we're in their doors is that sometimes this is really the very first time that people actually have educated conversations about the vaccine. Now, granted, we get thrown with all the conspiracies and all the ideas that they hear, and so we've been blessed to be trained by Dr. Van in the Guilford County Health Department, and we get all the information straight from the county. So none of the information we're pulling, we're getting straight from the experts. And so it's been great to have those conversations with the community. Our next parcels are going to be 13601, 138, 143, 145.01, and it's kind of small there on the screen, but I kind of put a little circle on the areas that are going to be coming up next, and so you'll see my team in orange in those neighborhoods. Now, one of the things, somewhere a few weeks ago, we were in conversation with oh my gosh, his name, Dr. Steven Sills, and he had shared with us this really, really cool map in our parcel 142, which you see pointed out there. That they did one of their survey studies, and they found that in that parcel, 37% of the population was the vaccination rate had increased over 5 times compared to the surrounding areas. And the day that I found that out, I literally partied in my chair because that was a true testament of our work. Our efforts are not in vain. And so this really, when we see numbers like that, it really just keeps us motivated to continue moving forward and continue spreading the correct information and offering our citizens the opportunity to get the vaccine if they want it. So that is what our t-shirts look like. And then I'm going to let Dalton come back in again and talk about why our volunteers have been so instrumental in this work.
Perfect. Thanks again, Giselle. So our team is 3 people, and we have to have 2 people in order to go out, in order to, maintain safety, make sure that we're keeping each other, holding each other accountable and keeping each other safe. So it's a minimum of 2 people. So when we have 3 volunteers for a day, we're able to cover a lot more ground because the volunteer is able to walk with us. Patrick's volunteered with us, so he can tell you a little bit more about the volunteer experience. But really, it's a great way for, a lot of people know who you guys are, and when you knock on their door, they might be more interested in talking to you because you're a trusted figure of the community. And it would be really nice if we could have some of those trusted people that people know to come out and walk with us, so that people, 1, answer the door so that we can have a conversation, and 2, given the complexity of the situation that we're now in with vaccine hesitation, to have those trusted community leaders out there with us, having those important conversations.
Thank you, and I'm almost at the end. And I just want to reemphasize, one of the things that my team goes when we go out is we're trying to build trust. When we go out in these neighborhoods, at the beginning, everybody's like, oh my gosh, who are you? What are you selling? We're not selling. And the funny thing is, like, cars will even stop and be like, who are you? Are you a church? Like, what are you, and we're like, no, we're just here spreading it, because they will see us with this little baggie as well. We're carrying a little purple big wagon, and we're putting all these, and they're like, what is that, right? And so it's a good way to start a conversation. And one of the things that I tell people is, this is all about building trust. And one of the things that we also find is that when people do finally say, like, okay, I want to get vaccinated, or I would like to schedule it, they say, like, are you going to be there? Will you be there? So they're looking for that familiar face. So truly, I'm blessed. I tell people I have the dream team. I couldn't ask for the best. Like, I honestly have, like, the best team with me. And they're so dedicated. And, we depend on our volunteers too, because we're able to spread out and cover more areas. But it really comes down to answering questions and building that trust between the community and what we're trying to accomplish. So we do have a link tree where all the information, there's also a training. We send it to our volunteers. Anybody that wants to volunteer, the training is about 40 minutes long to watch, but it has all the information. And then you can schedule yourself as many, times as you want to. And we do have a schedule we go out every 2 weeks. I'm losing my voice, I'm so sorry. And that is pretty much my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I am very happy to answer.
All right. Are there any questions? Well, let me tell you, because that's where you're walking is my ward, and I understand the heat. For some reason, certain parts of those areas feel like it draws there. And I will tell you, I'm happy to hear that you were received really well, because I've had a lot of doors slammed in my face over there. But it's expected. But thank you. Let me take a look at the schedule and time, and I'll be glad to walk with you.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, I would pray that you have something on weekends. That'll help me tons. But yeah, I look forward to it though. And thank you so much. And I'm excited about that. I mean, with the numbers that we're looking at, especially in Guilford County, and how they increased, the Delta increase is shown, and I think this is the best way we can counteract it. But thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. And one of the things too is, we meet every week to talk about these numbers as well. So we're not just choosing random places. That we have guidance that comes from the health department to guide, where we're going to put our efforts in. So it truly has been. At the beginning, like I said, we weren't sure what we were going to find, but I was surprised to see how good the community have been receptive, because at the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be, we're knocking on doors, but when people are home and people actually and you get the people that are like, oh no, thank you, there's some, but for the most part, they've been very, very receptive. So thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I have a sample of one of the bags. I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
It's just got like what we leave on.
And this is Councilman Johnson. I would love to go out with you guys as well.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll pass that along. All right. Next up is the discussion of Core City Neighborhood and potential ARP funding. I'll turn the floor over to Mike McNair.
While we're making that transition, I'd like to point out that Dalton was a former intern of ours, and that community development contributed a grant to this effort.
Oh.
So that's why I asked him to come down here.
Do I remember seeing you at an operation in as much?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
okay, yep, I do.
Oh, yeah.
I forget names, but I remember faces, so.
I remember your hair. You got good hair. I mean, Patrick and I remember people who have hair. Good afternoon, all. I'm going to talk to you about Core City Neighborhoods and American Rescue Plan Act. What I want to start out is picking up from the meeting that we had February 25th, 2020. That's when we had that special meeting to talk about Core City Neighborhoods, and I thought it made sense to kind of start from there and then sort of come forward. We'll talk about the fiscal recovery funds a little bit and show you the census tracts and potential neighborhood project. So back in February, we talked about taking the core city neighborhoods and dividing them into categories based on criteria that we were able to utilize. Some of it was parcel level data, which made it very useful as opposed to census tract data. So we were looking at things, quality of life variables like crime, code enforcement, tax delinquency, things of that nature, and broke the core city into 5 categories to come up with recommendations on things that we might want to consider doing. One of the things, several of these, well, almost all, I'd say all of these recommendations are still valid. It's just a matter of going forward how we want to take a look at it. But certainly, because of the scale of things, we have to consider strategic enhancements inside of neighborhoods. We can't fix a neighborhood, it's just too many people. And we were looking, at the time, we were talking about leveraging existing or upcoming revitalizing events, like Daniel Brooks, for instance. And we talked about the neighborhood enhancement team and the GIS data team that was recommended to us from the Center for Community Progress back in 2017. And those are concepts that we still would recommend that we go forward with. So I just wanted to tie that little up in a knot and just kind of bring that forward, because what I'll talk about still ties into that. Last night, I think you passed a resolution to receive American Rescue Plan fiscal recovery funds, and I won't rehash all of that, but one of the things I wanted to point out was the FRF, as is lovingly known, also authorizes assistance to communities that were most disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And the ARPA considers communities in qualified census tracts to reflect that. And they come up with a lot of flexibility where if you're in those census tracts, they have what they call presumptively eligible activities, where you don't have to really, I guess, ask for permission. It's like you're in that area, you can do this. And so it can provide a lot of levels of assistance. These are the QCTs that are in High Point. And they're defined as having 50% of the household incomes are at 60% of the AMI or less, or a poverty rate of at least 25%. Now, some of the activities that the ARPA says are presumptively eligible are emergency home repairs and weatherization, programs or services that address housing insecurity, lack of affordable housing, and homelessness. We use the core city as an outline because that's been our focus point, but you can see most of the core city is in the QCT. So when you look at that, you look at the possibility of providing some type of assistance. So if we had, and then these are preliminary conceptual things, but if we had emergency home repair services, I use the maximum of 25,000, but typically emergency home repairs are considered 10 to 12, somewhere in that range, but I just kind of threw that out there to give us an idea of what we're talking about. But because of the scale and the number of people that are out there, there are about 4,300 households in the core city in QCTs that are income eligible. There's no way we can touch that. And in areas outside of the core city, there's another 1,300 households. So you're looking at 5,700 households. So from that standpoint, you'd have to just set up a program and just say, well, we're going to put X number of dollars in first come, first serve. You know, if you're income eligible, maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $2 million, but it's a scale issue. You just can't help everybody. The other programs that the FRF talks about, rapid rehousing, which Dr. Palmer was talking about earlier, homeless day centers, another activity that would be probably eligible, and permanent housing for the homeless. So there's just some concepts and ideas that we would throw out there. So, for instance, if you're looking at 12, I started at 25, but if you're looking at 12,500 per household, 100 households is $1.2 million. So you kind of get a sensing of, you know, is it 200, is it 3, you know, where do you want to go? So it's part of the challenge. One of the areas that we actually talked about this last time, that was the Underhill area, Underhill Street area. That area, of course, you see the yellow area, that's Daniel Brooks that's being redeveloped. And we've looked at that, and I'm actually going to throw some numbers at you that are on the screen. You'll see the area that's outlined in red on the map. We're calling that the primary area, which is basically Underhill properties that touch Underhill. And then if you look at the entire area with HPU to the north and University Parkway to the east, Washington Street to the south, and Guilford County or the school over to the west. There's a natural boundary there. But if you look just on Underhill, there's 21 homeowners in that area. 21 homeowners and about 23 renters. And the point is, if we go into that area, you need to be prepared to touch every home in the area, or you can see the red and the orange, you'll get a weird effect where half the houses look nice and the other half don't. That's not I don't think the comprehensive effect that you were discussing a year and a half ago. So one of the things that we had kicked around was the possibility of having some kind of a cost-sharing program, similar to what we do now with the facade program, where you have an owner and let's say we'll match you dollar for dollar up to some point, 12.5 for instance, to get you to participate and bring your property up. So that's a matter for
That's non-occupant owners, right? That you're
Pardon?
talking about just like investment owners or something like that?
Yeah. And these would be emergency repair and weatherization. So not only would the unit become, a nicer, better condition, but it should be improve the utility costs for the tenant, which gets to livability issues. And that could be, a 0% loan of some kind that we could make available. If you look at the entire area, the home ownership drops off rapidly. And so in the entire area, there's 45 homeowners and 97 renters. So you get into that dynamic of whether you want to just try to stick to that or not. But again, this is preliminary discussion. We haven't really dug into it that deep, but just wanted to give you some thoughts and some ideas. And actually, I just went through that, so I believe that's all I have. Yep. Any questions for me?
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, Mike, thank you for putting this together. Exciting to know that with the opportunity coming down the pipe from federal funding potentially, then maybe we'll have something to fulfill a strategic initiative that a lot of us really felt passionate about at our council retreat back in February 2020. I know a lot of this information is preliminary and there will be more discussions. As a part of the discussions in our information gathering, I think it would be useful to disaggregate the renters in terms of those who have been long-term renters in that area. Reason being that ultimately when we make that delineation between those who rent and those who are homeowners, we're thinking of transient populations, and I think that those who are long-term renters are making the investment in the area and we really, really want to be there. I'm not saying what that has to mean in terms of how we partner and come alongside those folks in those homes, but I think at least having that information at a certain point is going to be useful. I think also, and I know we've looked at this before, but we've looked at some of the other statistics around crime and some other things in those areas too. Yeah, I know it's a whole lot. Have you talked about what you foresee in terms of next steps here?
Yeah, we have to, well, two things. The idea that we were talking about as far as establishing an emergency repair program for homeowners only, income eligible in the QCT, that doesn't require a lot of, I mean, we know how to do that.
Yeah.
So that's really taking an existing program and adding that additional piece onto it. As far as getting into a neighborhood, there's going to need to be some multi-departmental analysis. I'm just speaking from a narrow lens.
From where you're
development.
right.
I have no idea what the infrastructure requirements are in that particular neighborhood.
Right.
So that's something that would be the next step for us internally to make that review.
So when and I'm sorry, Assistant Manager Ferguson, like you're about to add something to it.
Not yet.
So when we had this discussion back in February 2020, and I think we were all around the table singing, no, I'm kidding, discussing this item. And that's when we start to look at that sort of interdepartmental collaboration and deliberations that would need to take place. I guess Manager Ford and Assistant Manager Ferguson, and you all's estimation, knowing that the timing of learning about the guidelines is this week, do you all feel like at a certain point we'll start framing up at least a planning process? Who will be on a task force to start looking at this, things of that nature?
Well, let me speak to the first part of it, which is kind of how this relates to the strategic goal. Part of the thought process that Mike shared today was just to stimulate some of the thought process as we move closer to coming back to council with some suggestions and recommendations on how ARP could be utilized. We know that pretty well it's called out that these uses are eligible. We're not necessarily suggesting that this is exactly the way that it has to be set up. There could be some components of this that the city council would adopt, but there could be others that you decide not to utilize. Going back to the retreat, one thing that was touched on but wasn't really fleshed out was, what does a street look like? If we've picked a street or a neighborhood and say we have this beta project or first neighborhood that the city's adopted, what does that look like after we're done with the neighborhood? What is the level of investment? Is it aesthetic treatment of the properties, or is it a comprehensive water, sewer, total rehab, some of which the residents really want to appreciate or see? because there could be millions of dollars that are buried underground, and it's not readily apparent that there's been investment there. So that's something that the city council probably has to spend a little bit more time on. The management staff really could make some suggestions as to ways to approach that, but that has not been fully fleshed out.
Manager Ford, you about to say something?
Yes, Tasha Logan Ford, City Manager, for those of us listening in. I think that from what I've seen and what I've been able to hear from staff is we're definitely on the right path with this. One other piece that I don't know has been considered is once we identify a specific neighborhood where we feel like we want to focus our energy, in addition to looking at renters in the area, homeowners that are in the area, but also taking a look at where there may be vacant property in the area, because I think there's an opportunity there for us to also figure out if there's a way for us to do some infill development, and whether or not that could be an activity that could be supported. So that way you're starting to create some new investment in the neighborhood. You're supporting existing homeowners that are living there, but you can also start to see some visual improvements in the area that we can build upon. So I think it has to be a both-and approach to this, where we're supporting what's there, but also thinking about how do we kind of build and enhance the neighborhood. And I know that Mr. McNair is probably very familiar with this too, but every neighborhood has a little bit different feel, fabric. There's a culture associated with the neighborhood. So as we're doing this too, there may be the opportunity for us to think about whether or not there's a public improvement that could be supported as we're thinking about these neighborhoods and really taking a holistic approach. So those are, I think, conversations that we still need to have, and they would definitely involve a number of departments in it. But I think the first piece is for us to really try to narrow down where council would like us to focus in a neighborhood. Otherwise, we would be looking at several different places, and I think that could be a little consuming for staff. And this is, forgive me, it's a little off the cuff. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, but just responding to the questions and the conversation today.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So thank you both for the very helpful information. Sounds like what I'm hearing from both of you all is that at a certain point, council and staff need to perhaps do some brainstorming around this. Staff has a number of information that you all could probably gather in the way of at least getting us to some recommendations and some suggestions for our consideration. But ultimately, as you say, it'll come down to council really thinking about it. I guess really for this body to be thinking about, and I'm not saying we have to make that decision today, but at least in the spirit of getting the ball rolling, Chairman Williams, deciding what does that look like? Does that look like just the next time they talk about it is in one of these meetings? Do we do a specific work session on this item between now and then? Ultimately, what's most conducive for us to do what was just laid out, which is hear the recommendations of staff and have good, healthy discussion and deliberation and say what is it that we want to do around this kind of topic, and begin to kind of form up a way forward, at least a scope, a focus going forward. So yeah, that's what I would pose, I guess, to this body is, are we just gonna have those deliberations in this committee meeting? So does that mean the next time we're talking about this is top of September? My personal thinking is we need to have real, like we need to have a designated time to talk about this and to really get into the nuts and bolts of it, and almost kind of make it a work session the way we've made budget work
Probably
sessions.
the same as what we just did with the Cultural Arts Center. To say this needs to come before full council so we can talk, so we can sit and talk. Because the council has to make the decision.
Well, I'll tell you this. Just know that a lot of the groundwork was done. GIS, am I saying that right? Okay, yeah, that's GIS Google right there. That work is already was in place and moved and it actually made strides. And I know why you feel that way, because I can feel the smile on your. I can tell the smile because you're looking at the area, which was the.
Oh, I wasn't even noticing that. Is that in Ward 1?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, man, that is the Coltrane. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Who's doing that?
So, but nevertheless, I think they've already kind of got the legwork going in that. I think it's a matter of it stays in their hands to go ahead and move it forward. Everything they say preliminary, but really that sounds strategic already. The placement that when you figure in the non-occupant property owners there and the owners there, a lot of those pieces kind of have already been done in other programs and different variances. So it's just a matter of kind of collecting those pieces and joining it together to this project. On different type of like, I think it was, what was it, when you had a developer that wanted to upfit a property, we would match or we would reimburse. So those elements are already been done. It's just a matter of letting them do their homework and then having a conversation after they come up with the plan, I think.
Yeah, so what I was speaking to is that just now, and within the thought sharing, it was at a certain point narrowing scope. And I guess perhaps in order for any form of council, whether it's the committee or full council, making a decision on how we narrow that scope, perhaps we need the information that allows us to say, what does it look like to do this wide of a scope? What does it look like to do aesthetic? What does it look like to do this? And at a certain point, have enough information where we can have a discussion, consider making a decision. If we're not ready to make a decision, table it to get more information. But getting that ball rolling, what is that next step is what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, in my opinion, and just my opinion, I think the fact that he spoke of leveraging what the housing authority is already doing in that area, and this area that's shown here could be the model that we can move to the next project with. I think what's been discussed, at least this should be the focal point, because I don't know if we got an opportunity like this in any other area currently.
I'm not talking about that. So scope in terms of, they say, hey, we could do an upfit of a neighborhood based purely on aesthetics, right? Sidewalks, lights, houses, as far as the streetscape, like, or we could do a whole neighborhood enhancement, do the aesthetic and do the ground stuff, the infrastructure and all the other good things. So I heard Assistant Manager Ferguson say, council's never given any real decision or guidance on whether we want to go into the ground and cut that kind of stuff up, or if we just want to look at aesthetics. That's what I'm talking about. It's not in terms of actual location of it. And so at a certain point, before they could really get going on what a project plan looks like for that to happen, council has to make a decision on, do we want them just looking at the aesthetic stuff, or do we want them looking at aesthetic and going in the ground? And maybe there's another tier that I'm not even considering here of something else that we could be doing in terms of neighborhood development.
Well, it's gonna come down to numbers, I say, then.
Right.
Should
So-
just give us the options on, aesthetic numbers, or deeper dive numbers, how far we are willing to.
And are we looking to focus in the area that was presented today for staff to do a deeper dive? Is that the area that you would like for us to focus on? I think that's the question.
I'm gonna catch it for saying this, but yes, I think that'd be the best place to start.
You want to start with that?
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
that's also what Councilmember Jefferson is saying is, this is because of COVID, obviously, this has sat for 18 months as one of our priorities. And then we were saying we need to pick a location. And I think I'm excited to pick a location. I think that's what he's saying as well, that we can go ahead and get rolling on this.
Yeah.
And I'll share with you, this is an aside. My brother is from Texas. He visited High Point the first time over Christmas, and what he wanted to do was eat at Becky and Mary's, of course, and go see John Coltrane's house. That's it. Never been here before. He's a jazz pianist, but he came from Texas to see John Coltrane's house.
I think it's a strategic.
I think we drive by it too often and forget how important John Coltrane is in the music world, the jazz world. So.
Well, if we have an area, then let us go back and start to try to get a handle on what some of those numbers might be for the infrastructure piece, and then also for the housing piece. And as Mr. McNair was whispering in my ear, we have to make sure we have some time to do that, thinking of some staffing changes and challenges we'll have coming up, but we'll do that. and let you know kind of our timing associated with gathering that work, if that works for the committee.
So, and I'll let the board make the decision on this. Where do we want them to present after they get that done? You want it here, or do we want to have it as something in front of the body?
I mean, I think it makes sense for it to come back here. To Director McNair's point, you know, the next time this body convenes is a month from now. It may very well be that you all don't have all the information a month from now, but I think it would be great for us to at least hear what's kind of out there a month from now. And if you all say, hey, we need another month or so to do that, I think that's fine. Before we say, all right, it sounds pretty good enough for us to take something back to full council. So to that point, if we could hear something a month from now, that's not to say it's got to be complete by a month from now. Just what's our update in terms of the information we're learning. The other big point I'll say is in terms of, because I know a lot of times we prescribe, hey, go find this information, find this information. I would hate to say find this, this, and this, and forget to say go find this. So if I could say, in the spirit of what I'm about to say, if you were looking at neighborhood development and enhancement and had a wish list for what that could look like, and what's all the information that you would need to make a good decision to hit that wish list, or to cut down on some of that wish list, or to do none of that wish list, that would be, I think, the focus of our information gathering there. And whatever we have preliminarily in a month, I think would be great to look at. And heck, we may get there in a month, and everyone may have this information in their back pocket. Who knows? And we may be ready to vote on it. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, sorry. That's my thinking on it.
Understand, thank you.
I think council would appreciate a recommendation from us, more
Absolutely.
than just starting cold.
Okay.
Councilman Johnson, you still on there?
Hello?
Hey, okay. Did you want to chime in on this?
Absolutely. I would agree that I believe that it should come back to this committee before it goes to the full council. So I would agree.
All right. Okay, so I think if anybody else didn't have anything else, I think we have a direction. We'll turn it back over to y'all and we'll wait to hear back from you. All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, staff. Appreciate it. Greg, Madam Manager. Did want to throw one little bit into this with the I guess the moratorium has expired this past month for so far as eviction protection and things of such. We might want to kind of maybe reshare the HOPE program just to get that back out. I think I read something preliminary that President Biden is going to put some restrictions on what's next, but at least I think that the information on passing out the HOPE information for those who need it now, to the best of our ability, would be a good idea. Do you have any?
Well, I needed to clarify something. The HOPE program is not in Guilford County anymore.
Oh,
Guilford County took a direct allocation, so they're providing that through DSS.
Through DSS.
Yeah, and then, so there's, they have I forgot what they call it, but they have I think it's Guilford Emergency Assistance Program or something like that. It's on their website, we can get it to you.
All right.
Also, oddly enough, we're still not seeing tremendous surges. You know, we have several contracts with agencies to provide rental assistance. And we're still not seeing, that money hasn't been spent, and that's been a year. So we're not sure what that means. I think part of it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of other resources floating around from the county, in some cases from the state. You have people that have ESG funds, things like that. And I think, but we'll see, we'll watch it, see what happens.
Is the program focused on renters or landlords?
It's focused on renters. The landlord will receive the funds, but not the tenant.
Right.
It's a little convoluted because they have to, some of the landlords in some cases may not like it because they have to agree to certain things, like not to evict the person for
Yeah.
some period of time or something like that. But yeah, the tenant actually makes the application or initiates the application, but ultimately it comes down to the landlord receiving the funds. The tenant won't get the funds. Actually, the service
You'd be
provider
more
will get the funds.
successful
Like in our
focusing
case, the city would get the funds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know if it would be more successful focusing on the landlords, since they're not getting the rent, saying if you want to get your rent, get your renter to,
I'm sorry,
Apply
I was
for this.
I was thinking of the utility assistance. On the rental assistance, the landlord does get the money. Yeah, we don't have a role in that. I misspoke.
that's what I was saying, is it more effective to go to a landlord, because they're the ones, no. I'm behind, I have one that's behind in rent, and I went to him and said, apply for this. He didn't know it existed, so I don't know if it's more effective to actually do it through the landlord than the renter.
You could do it, but the tenant would have
The
to,
tenant has to
obviously,
apply.
would have to cooperate.
I think it's, I see
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't hurt.
the benefit in that, because if you tell them, apply for this, then you won't get kicked out, so.
I mean, that is part of the agreement, is if you apply for it, it means the landlord agrees, I won't evict you for 6 months. There's an agreement there, so it's.
Does that cover mortgages too?
Our program, we do have a program that offers mortgage assistance
Okay.
out of one of our contracts. The rest of them are just, I think we have 4 contracts out. The rest of them are rental and utilities.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anything else? Go ahead, sir.
Chairman Williams, thank you. This is Councilman Jefferson. Could we also, in thinking about this most recent project along Underhill and the Daniel Brooks redevelopment, is it possible, I guess, in our next committee meeting, maybe if we can speak with Housing Authority and just, if they have any updates on where they stand on that, that would be great to hear. Also, some of the other projects that are out there that are being worked on in terms of housing, just to kind of get just like an overview, sort of shadow update, like, hey, here's where this is, in terms of some timelines. I know some folks are being delayed in terms of materials coming in and what that looks like, so it would just be great to kind of have that information on hand. Heck, some of that could probably just be sent in an email, I'm fine with that too. The other thing, for all those listening and the people in the back, National Night Out is today. And we know National Night Out is very important to our community. And so if you're able to go somewhere, we encourage you to. I know some efforts rescheduled theirs in lieu of weather. So you can go enjoy National Night Out at a lot of neighborhoods, but if you're coming to Washington Street, you gotta come on the 17th. Dr. Patrick Harmon has more information regarding that, so.
Right, is there anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right, is there anyone that's objecting to adjourn? Then we are adjourned.